Hello guys, this is Paul McWhorter from TopTechBoy.com, and we're here today with lesson number 1 in our incredible new tutorial series where you're going to learn how to do 3D graphics and 3D animations in Python. What I'm going to need you to do is pour yourself a nice strong cup of black coffee. That is straight up black coffee, no sugar, no sweetener, none needed. And what I'm going to need you to do is get ready to learn some cool new stuff. Now, in this series of lessons, I am going to assume that you have basic familiarity with Python. If you've not seen Python yet, you need to hop over to my other tutorial series where I sort of teach some of the basics of Python. But in this series of lessons, you don't need to be a Python expert, but you do need to kind of be familiar with the basic concepts of Python. The other thing is, in this series of tutorials, I will be using the most excellent Visual Studio Code as my development environment, and it's going to make your life a lot easier and my life a lot easier if we are using the same development environment. If you don't have Visual Studio Code, it's a great program. It's a free program. You can go back to my Python lessons and my Python tutorials on the other playlist. Lesson number 5 shows you how to install Visual Studio Code and how to get it configured the way I have mine configured. So it'll just be a lot easier for you to follow along with me. And so what I will be doing is I will be switching over to my most excellent Visual Studio Code. And if you remember, in that earlier series of lessons, we were working in a folder called Python files. Well, what I really want to do is I want to make a new folder for this series of lessons. So all those old programs are in that Python files folder, and we're going to have a new folder that we are going to call Vpython, because we will be using Visual Python or Vpython to do our 3D graphics and our 3D animations. So the way we would do that is we would come over to File and we would come to Open Folder. Now you say, I haven't made the folder yet. Don't worry, just follow along. Trust the plan, as they say, trust the plan. You're going to click on Open Folder, and when you click on Open Folder, it comes over and you need to kind of navigate to where you want this folder to be. I've got mine. This was what I was doing before, the Python files, and this is in my TopTechBoy.com folder. You can put this wherever you want, but just sort of remember where you put it. But once you get this open, then I'm going to say right mouse click and I'm going to say new. I'm going to make a new folder called Vpython, little v, uppercase P, Vpython, and then all of my programs I'm going to put in this folder. I will click enter, and now that we've created it, I want to select it and then say select folder there, and then boom, in Visual Studio Code, I have a new working folder called Vpython. All right, now that is where we're going to be doing our work, but before we can really do any work, we need to install Vpython. Vpython is a library that runs under Python, and it allows us to do all the cool 3D simulations and graphics and animations. So what I need to do is I need to come over here to View, and then under View, I'm going to come down to Terminal, and that will open up a terminal for me down here. And so I just need to click down here somewhere, and then I'm going to click Enter, and you can see, I will move further out of your way, you can see that I have a command line here. This would be like opening up in Windows the CMD folder or the CMD terminal, and we can do some operations here. Well, what we need to do is we need to install Vpython, and we do that using pip. Now, if you're on one of the later versions of Python 3, you should already have pip installed. And I should say that I can type in Python here, and I am on Python 3.9.1. You need to at least be on one of the later versions of Python 3. You would not want to be on Python 2. Those Python 2 won't work with this series of lessons. Okay, so yes, I am on Python 3.9. And Python 3.9 comes with pip, and so you should just be able to do a pip install with that. So I will come here and I will type, not pup, that's a whole different thing, pip install Vpython, like that. pip install Vpython like that, and then I click enter, and it is collecting things, and it is over there doing all of this good stuff. This is what you want to see. You want to see it out downloading packages and installing packages, because when you do the pip install Vpython, what it also installs are all the other packages that you will need in order to do Vpython. Now this might take 3 or 4 minutes to do, and so I'm not going to pause the video. I'll just sit here and kind of chat with you as this is doing this. Yours might be going faster or slower. I have a very fast internet connection, so it downloads the stuff very quickly. If you have a slower connection, it might take you a little bit longer. But kind of telling you what we're going to do in this series of lessons, we're going to start by learning how to just make 3D graphics, like create 3D objects using Python, and then we're going to animate those 3D objects where we can make things move around and do different things. And then after that, what we're going to learn is we're going to learn to connect Python and Vpython to Arduino, and then we can be out collecting data, and then we can create animations on Vpython that represent what's happening in the real world. So let's say that we have Arduino, and Arduino is measuring temperature. We can send that temperature data over to Vpython, and we could have like a graphic of a 3D thermometer, and we could have that thermometer showing graphically as the temperature goes up and down, like a little animation or simulation of a thermometer that is actually responding to what is happening in the real world. Okay, it looks like my Vpython has installed. And so if yours hasn't finished yet, go ahead and pause the video until your installation finishes, and then rejoin me. Okay, so I'm going to assume that you have it all installed now, and I am going to kill this, and then I am going to kill this, and so we are ready to start our first program. So I come over here and I point at Vpython, and then I click the little plus, and then that allows me to add a new Python program inside of Vpython, and I am going to call it Vpython intro.py. The .py is kind of important, and also it is poor programming practice to put spaces in file names, so never put a space in a file name. And then I'm going to click enter, and boom, I have a fresh new what is this? Pylint is not installed. Do not show again. Okay, so I got rid of that. All right, so I have a fresh new Python program just waiting to be written. And so the first thing I want to do is I want to just see if the Python program was installed successfully. So or the Python library. So I'm going to say import the Python. Okay, and then I'm just going to run that and see if I get any errors. And we will be looking down here, and boom, what you see is it ran the program, and then it came back to the command prompt, and we didn't get any errors. And so that would indicate that we had installed Vpython correctly. Now we are going to try to generate our very first animation, not our very first animation, our very first 3D graphic. And so we are going to create a ball, and that ball is going to be equal to sphere, and then just open and close. And since we are doing this with the Vpython library, we need to say vpython.sphere. So this will go to our Vpython library, it will find the method sphere, and it should create a sphere. Now, what I will say is that after this line of code, if you just let the program end, you create this animation of this sphere, and then you let the program end, what you're going to get is you're going to get kind of an ugly error because the program stopped with the animation or the graphic just hanging out there. That's not good. So what I need to do is create a while true, And when is true true? True is always true. And then what do I want to do? I want to just pass, okay? So it's going to import the library. It's going to create this sphere, which it's going to call ball, and then it's going to just sit and loop and do nothing, and that just keeps the program alive so that you are able to keep the visualization up there. Now this will fire it up and it will open it in a browser. So whatever your default browser is, it's going to fire up a browser window, and then you're going to see this ball, this sphere that you created in that browser window. Now the first time you do this, you might get some sort of permissions question from Windows. Windows might ask, do you really want to let Vpython open a browser window or something like that? You just say yes, let it do it. And so we are going to give this a try. So I'm going to try to run this. I'm going to click this for run. And boom, we can come over here to this other window, and what you can see is that we created a most excellent sphere. So in about the first 5 minutes of this lesson, of this tutorial, you have already created your own first visualization. So we're going to come back over here and let's see if we can make things a little more interesting. All right, as we do and do and do and go and go and go, I don't want to, every time I call a method, have to type in Vpython. So I'm going to show you a little bit better way to import Vpython where we won't have to keep saying Vpython every time we want to use it. So we're going to say from Vpython, we are going to import start, which means from Vpython import everything. And by doing things this way, then we're not going to have to say vpython.sphere. We can just say sphere and it should do it. So I'm going to come back over here on my other window. I'm going to kill that browser that had the sphere in it, and I'm going to run it again and see if I can regenerate that. And boom. Look at that. Did you guys get that? Okay, so this is an easier way to create a sphere. And so we are really on a roll here. Okay, so that was kind of really easy. That was really easy. But let me show you something else that you can do. Between the open and closed parentheses, you can start putting parameters. What is a parameter? Well, what if I wanted to set the color? So I could say color is equal to color.red. Now this can't do, like if you say color.fuchsia or something like that, it's not going to go do that. But I bet you could do like red, green, blue, orange, cyan, magenta, yellow. I bet you could probably do those. And now I am going to come in and run this thing, and let's see what happens. And oh, that reminds me, the program was still running from before and we tried to run it again. That's not good. You've got to come over here, and with this little trash can over my shoulder here, that little trash can, kill that trash can, and that will kill the program before you try to run it again. And I'm going to probably forget that more than one time. And boom, we've got ourselves a red sphere. Guys, look at this. We're doing 3D graphics here, just lickety split. So this is kind of fun, huh? So that is creating a red sphere. Now I want to show you something else we could do. We could create that, and then what we could do is let's pause. And so if I'm going to pause, I need to get over here where you can see me. If I am going to pause, I'm going to need to from time import star, and so I'm going to import the time library. And then what I could do is I could just do sleep, and I'm going to sleep for 5 seconds. And now this is a thing that I want to show you can do. You can change the characteristics of that ball after you created it. What is it called? The object is created ball. And what I could do is I could say ball dot color is equal to color dot blue, like that. So ball dot color is equal to color dot blue, and that should change the color. And so let's see if that'll work. I will click there and I will come over here, and let's see if that will create. And you know what we forgot to do again? We forgot to we forgot to kill the program. And I am probably going to do that more than once. And so we've always got to remember to kill that last version of the program before we run the next version. So we'll come here, and then we will click over here, and then boom, we have a red ball, and that should stay there for about 5 seconds, and it turned blue. Okay, and now it's just going to stay blue because it is down here in this loop. But what we could do is we could say, let's sleep another 5, and then let's call it ball.color is equal to color dot, let's do green like that, and see if that will run. Show you that. Okay, so what we did was we did color, ball color is color.blue. We waited 5, and now we're going to do ball.color is color.green, and then it should stay green because it'll just be down in here. Let's remember to kill this program this time, and then let's come over here and run it, and then we will switch over to our browser window, and we get a red ball. 4, 3, 2, 1. We get a blue ball. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and we get a green ball. All right, guys. So you see, we're already kind of starting to do a little bit of an animation there. All right, so we have created a ball, and we can change its color. So let's play around a little bit more with it. The world is made up of things. I'm going to go ahead and kill that program. Okay, with the little trash can, we kill the program. The world is made up of things besides spheres. And what if we said a what if we said a box? Okay, and what my box is going to be is I don't want to. Box is what the command is, and so I will call it my box is going to be equal to box, and let's make it a color. Let's see if we can do a yellow. Okay, and then since we don't have ball, right, we don't have ball anymore, I need to get rid of all this stuff. We are just seeing if we can make a box, and so I will run this thing and then switch over here. And then boom, we got a box. Okay, now it looks like just a square, right? It just looks like a square. But if you will point over here at it, and now I need you to right mouse click, and then drag it around, you can see that you have a 3D cube, and you can change the zoom of it. Also, if you use the mouse wheel, your mouse wheel, you can make it smaller or bigger, right? I'm just using the mouse wheel. If you have a mouse wheel, you can make it smaller or bigger, and then right mouse click, you can change the view of it. So that is pretty slick. Okay, so we have learned to make a sphere. We have learned to make a box. Well, let's see if we can play around with that box a little bit. What if we wanted to set the size? Well, I could say, let's say I wanted to make something that looked like a ruler. Okay, I am going to come back over here. Man, I've got to make sure that you guys are looking at what I am looking at, because, you know, I'm having to switch between two screens. I got to make sure that I'm not talking from a screen that you're not able to see. So let's see if we can give it a size. So I am going to say length is going to be equal to 12. Okay, and then I am going to say width is, let's see, make sure that you can see this. Width is going to be equal to 1. A ruler is about 1, and then height is going to be equal to, let's say about 0.2. Let's see how that looks. Now let's see if we make something that looks like a ruler. Do you think it knows brown? Brown would look a little bit more like a ruler. I don't know if it knows brown or not, but we'll see if we can do that. And always remember to kill the program. Again, do you see this little trash can over my shoulder here? Make sure you kill the program in the trash can. And then let's see if we can run this thing again. And then we will come back over to this view. And it doesn't like something here. Oh, look what I did. Look what I did. Did you guys see that? I said height of 0.2, where what I should have said was height equal 0.2. I don't know how I did that. And then make sure that you close your box. So I open the box and then I close the box parentheses, and we are going to run this thing now. We are going to make sure the other one is dead, and then we are going to run it, and we are going to get another, we get another error. It doesn't know what brown is. That is pretty lame that it doesn't know what brown is. I would think brown would be a pretty common color, but let's try magenta. Cyan, magenta, yellow. It should know that one, I would think. So we will come here, and then we come over here, and boom, there is our ruler. Now what I want you to kind of see here is we've got to start kind of orienting ourselves to the three-dimensional world. We've got to start orienting ourselves to the three-dimensional world. And so what I want you to see is that height parameter that we set. This height parameter is kind of like Z, it's kind of like Y. It is up and down. The height parameter is kind of Y. It is up and down. And the length parameter is kind of like X. So you sort of got X is length, and then Y is height, and then Z is width. So Z is coming out of the page. And so you've got to kind of think that, you know, how you get the parameters that you want. And remember, X goes like this, Y goes like this, and then Z is out of the page. And that's kind of the right-hand rule. If you go from X to Y, your thumb points in Z. So you go from the X-axis to the Y-axis, and your thumb is pointing in Z. And so I know I'm kind of repeating myself, but as we get really into Vpython, you've got to understand kind of like which direction is which. And so let's come back over here and let's look at our animation, and remember Y is going this way. And so Y was the height that's very thin, and then Z is coming out of the page, and Z is the width, and then the length is along X. Now I can come over here and I can right mouse click on this and I can spin it around, and yeah, look at that. You see, it really does look like a ruler that we created. It really does look like a ruler, and so that is pretty neat. I'm still a little miffed that I can't get brown. All right, little miffed that I can't get brown. Okay, let's go back to our code view. Let's see something else that we could create. Well, I could create my tube, and my tube would be a what? It would be a cylinder. And let's make color dot. Let's see if we can make an orange. Let's see if it knows orange. And guys, you can really make any color you want. And in a later video, I'll show you how to just do any color you want by mixing colors. But right now, we're just doing the standard colors that they're offering. Let's leave this length of 12. Well, you wouldn't have a width and a height, but you would have a radius. And that radius, let's make the radius equal to 1. And so this should generate a tube. So we are going to kill the old program, and then we're going to run the new program, and then we're going to hop over here, and boom, we have a tube. And I am going to kind of spin this around, and you can see that part of the problem here is that we have run the tube off the edge of the page. And so we said that that tube was 12. And so why was the ruler 12? And it fit, and the tube is 12 and it doesn't? Well, because the ruler kind of has the center of the rectangle at the origin of the scene, and so you sort of had 6 inches and 6 inches, and so it fit. And this tube, it starts the end at the origin, and so it went off the end of the page. Now what I will show you in later videos is to how to set the size of that window and do things like that, but we're not going to worry about that today. We are going to fix that. I think if I just go to 6 probably the whole window is from -6 to +6. And so if I just set this, over here, if I just set this over here to a length of 6, then that should be pretty much on the page, but it's still going to kind of be the edge over, and so the edge is going to be on the center. And so what I will do here is I will kill that old program with the little trash can, and then we are going to run this, and then we're going to come back over here, and then boom, this should be kind of like right to the edge, and it is not. What did I not do right? I did not do something right here. Let's come back and see, I set length is equal to 6, and it still seemed to be an enormous one. And so let's see, my tube is a cylinder. Let's make the length 1, and that certainly should stay on the screen. And so we're going to learn kind of some of the quirky things about this. So it looks like we have already killed the program, and now length is 1. So we will come over here, and we will run this, and we will come back over here, and there it is. Okay, so for 1, and so this is a radius of 1, which would be a diameter of 2, and then that is 1 long, and so that is pretty good. Okay, so you can see I can kind of create whatever I want, but when I'm creating it, I can run it off the edge of the screen. And so it looks like maybe that this is, if this is a length of 1, maybe the whole window goes from +3 to -3 here. So we're going to really need to learn how to kind of control our view. And so I will come back over here, and we will kill that. And then let's say that I make it, I'm going to try something. What if I made it 12 again? Instead of a radius, what if we set a length and width? Will the program crash, or will we get something interesting? So I'll say the, let's say the width is equal to, let's say 1, and let's say the height is equal to 0.5. Now that would be kind of odd because a cylinder is round and you would really specify it with a radius. So what happens if we tried to set a width and a height of a cylinder? Does it just crash, or do we get an interesting result? So we'll try to run that, come back over here, and boom, look at that, it did make it. And the funny thing is this time it didn't run it off the edge, and so we'll spin it over here. And we'll try to back up where you can see it. Look at that. So you can actually set, you can create an object. You can call it a cylinder, but then if you give it a width and a height, you can kind of make, that would be considered an ellipse. So it's like an extruded ellipse that we can make by setting the width and height of a cylinder, which I think is kind of neat. So we'll come back, and we will kill that program. So look at all the stuff that we have learned to do already. We've learned to make a ball, we've learned to make a box, and we have learned to make a cylinder. And so, and we've also learned that length is in the X direction, okay? And then I believe that we had height was in the Y direction, and then width is coming out of the page, width is kind of in the Z direction. So let's come in and let's go back and let's play around again with making a box, only I'm going to call it a wall. All right, and the wall is going to be a box. Okay, so the wall is going to be a box, and my color is going to be equal to color dot. I wonder if it knows gray. Did I even? Let's see if it'll show me the color. So I say color dot. Oh, look at this. I've got different colors: black, blue, cyan. Let's go. It would know yellow. It would know orange. It would know green. So you can see, you can kind of see, and you see it knows gray. And so let's say if I can make the wall gray, color is equal to color dot gray. And then I'm going to kind of, instead of making a box, I'm going to kind of make a wall. And so what I want that wall to be is, I want that wall to be a length is equal to 10. And so length is along X. And then what I want is I want the height to be equal to, and I believe height was in Y, right? So height is going to be like this. I'm going to want it to be 0.1. And then on the width, which is coming out of the page, I want width to be equal to 10. And so this is going to be kind of a wall, and it should be down flat, but it should be a 10 by 10 wall that's kind of thin. And so we are going to come up here and we are going to run this thing. And then we'll come over here and let's see if we get anything. And I don't seem to be getting anything. What is it not like? Okay, I got an error. And so let's come back over here and see what it didn't like. I have length is 10, height is 0.1, width is 10, and color must be a vector. Okay, it didn't like gray. I thought that it would like gray, but gray probably wants a parameter, and so let's just say white. Let's see if it knows white. And now I will come back and I will make sure this is dead, and then I will run it, and then I will come over here. And then there we have it. Okay, so this is going to be, so I'm going to back off and then I'm going to tilt it, and look at that. I made a big plate. That is pretty cool, I think. I made a big plate. And it sort of turned out gray, even though I called it white. It sort of turned out great, but that worked out pretty well. I would say that worked out pretty well. All right, so we are going to learn something new now. I'm going to kill over my shoulder, kill the program. So I made a wall. Okay, now I want to show you that wall that I made, you can move it around, okay? And you've got to remember that X is in this direction, Y is in this direction, and then Z is in this direction. And if I go from X to Y, my thumb points in Z. Right, so you got to remember that right-hand rule, go from X to Y and your thumb points in Z. And so what I want to do is I want to think about changing the position or setting the position. And I'll just put it here so you can watch me type it in. You can put these in any order, but I'm going to say I want to give it a position, and that position is going to be equal to, the position is going to be equal to, and now what I have to do is I have to set it as a vector, because position needs 3 numbers. You know, and you're doing relative to the center of your box. So it would be the center of the wall. So that would be the center in X, the center in Y, and the center in Z relative to the center of your scene. So what I need to do is I need to put a comma between my vector and color. And now where do I want this? Well, I want to take this wall and I want to move it down 5. Okay, I want to move it down 5. And so that would be in the Y direction. So where do I want to move it in the X direction? Nowhere. So remember, X, Y, Z. So I don't want to move it anywhere in the X direction. In the Y direction, I want to go -5. And then in the Z direction, I don't want to move it anywhere. So I am going to put a 0 there. Okay, I'm going to put a 0 there. And so what I'm going to do now is run this, and then we will come back over here and see what happens. And boom, do you see that? It took this and it lowered it down to -5. Okay, so not only can I control the size, but I moved it down. And the way that I moved it down was I'm very carefully thinking about where I am in 3D space. And that's really the key, guys, is you've got to start getting yourself oriented in 3D space. The center of your view is the point 0, 0, 0. And then you're going to move out in X or back in X, or you're going to be moving up and down in Y. In this case, we move down in Y. And then you've got to remember Z is out of the page, and kind of towards you out of the page is positive Z, right-hand rule, and further into the page is negative Z. Does that make sense? So let me show you something else. Let's call that wall 1. Okay, we're going to call that wall 1. Well, what if I make a wall 2? Wall 2 is going to be equal to box. Well, where do I want to put this? Well, this is kind of like the floor. In fact, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to call this object the floor. Okay, and then I am going to call this object, I'm going to call this object the ceiling. And so the ceiling should be where? It should be at position is equal to vector. Now, the ceiling should be up. So where would that be? That's in the y direction. But what would it be? It would be 0, plus 5, and then 0, because I don't want to move it left and right, and I don't want to move it in and out of the page. And so the floor is going to be down here, and the ceiling is going to be up here. All right, let's go ahead and give it a color. So I'm going to say color is equal to color.white again. And then what am I going to do? I am going to give it a length is equal to 10, and then a height. Boy, height is a hard word to spell, isn't it? It's equal to 0.1, and then a width is equal to 10, and I think you could see all that. All right, so what do we expect this to do? What we expect this to do is create a floor down here and create a ceiling up here, and then, you know, we should sort of have a pretty good start on a room. We should have a pretty good start on a room. So let's go ahead and run this, and I will run it. I will move back over to the view here, and you know what we forgot to do? Yes, we forgot to kill the other program, and so we need to kill that other program, and then we will try it again. And here we go. Coming up. Boom! Look at that. You see that? We're building ourselves a room. Okay, and then again we can scoot out by scrolling or scoot in, right mouse click, and we can move it around, and you can see we are creating a 3D room. And so that is pretty cool. That is just pretty darn cool. All right, guys, this has kind of been a pretty nice little introduction, and I wanted to give you guys a chance to play around with this on your own. And so this is your homework assignment. Your homework assignment is to create a 3D room. So what would you need? You would need the floor, you would need the ceiling, and now I need you to make a left wall, and then I need you to make a right wall. And so you're going to have floor, ceiling, left wall, right wall, and then back here you need to have a back wall. Now don't put a front wall, because if you put a front wall, you're not going to be able to look in the room. And so we're just going to imagine the front wall, but there's going to be a back wall, a side wall, ceiling, and floor. And then what I want you to do is I want you to put a little marble, a red marble, in the center of the room. So you're going to create this room. It's going to be 10 wide, it's going to be 10 high, and it's going to be 10 deep. The walls are going to be 1/10 of an inch thick, and then in the center of the room you're going to put a red marble. Okay, that is your homework assignment for next week. Guys, I hope you're having as much fun with this as I am, and I hope that this has been enough to show you that this is pretty easy, and I hope that it's been enough to kind of tweak your interest, and you can just play around with boxes and cylinders and spheres. You can play around with boxes, cylinder, and spheres. You can play around with their color, you can play around with their position, and you can play around with their size. And so I think that is a pretty good set of lessons that we've been able to do today, and then go out and build that room. And then next week what I will do is I will build the room, and you'll see kind of how I did it, and if you got hung then you'll sort of see what the solution is, and then we'll start learning some new stuff next week. Okay guys, I hope you've enjoyed this lesson. If you enjoyed the lesson, make sure to give us a thumbs up, and also if you haven't subscribed to the channel, make sure that you subscribe. When you subscribe, make sure you ring that that bell so that you'll get notifications when future lessons come out. And think about sharing this on your social media. We need more people out there coding and less people watching silly cat videos. So let's see if we can get some more people interested in this series of lessons. Again, this is Paul McWhorter from TopTechBoy.com. I will talk to you guys later.